Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai roi lo echsar. Binot asher yarbitzeni al memenuchot yanachaleni. Nafshi shovev, yanacheni v'magle tzedek lema'an shemo. Gam ki helech b'gitz al mavet, lo irara ki ata imadi. Shiftecha umishantecha hema yenachamuni. Taroch lefanai shulchan neged tzurirai. Dishanta v'shemen roshi kosir vaya. Ach tov v'chesed yirdifuni ko yamei chayai v'shaviti b'veit Adonai le'orech yamim. I've chanted for you the words of our 23rd Psalm. These days, these moments when our hearts are heavy and we are overwhelmed with sadness, we often turn to the psalmist, and so I invite you at this time to recite these words with me. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we will remember him. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we will remember him. In the opening buds and in the rebirth of spring, we will remember him. In the blueness of sky and in the warmth of summer, we will remember him. In the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we will remember him. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we will remember him. When we are weary and in need of strength, we will remember him. And when we are lost and sick at heart, we will remember him. When we have joys we yearn to share, we will remember him. So long as we live, he too will live, for he is now a part of us, as we remember Stephen Angel. To his daughter Jenny and his son-in-law Alan, to his brother and sister-in-law John and Kathy, to his brothers-in-law and sisters-in-law Joel, Stanley, Olmet, and Fran, and to his grandchildren Cordelia and Persephone, and to all the members of the family, and to so many dear friends. We've come together today to remember, but also to celebrate the life of your beloved Steve. We've been taught by our sages that birth is a beginning and death a destination, and life is a journey from childhood to maturity and youth to age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength or strength to weakness and often back again, from health to sickness and back, we pray, to health again, from offense to forgiveness and from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude and pain to compassion and grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backward or ahead we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey, stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, and life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage to life everlasting. Steve's journey began in 1944. He was born in Philadelphia to Larry and Peggy Angel. And Steve, along with his brother John, who is with us, and also his older sister Elizabeth of blessed memory, the three children grew up in a very modest neighborhood, a neighborhood that was lined with red brick row houses with porches in an area known as West Mount Airy. Steve spent much of his childhood and teenage years playing baseball and keeping busy with the Boy Scouts. He was quite the Phillies fan, as he had memorized all the stats of the current and old-time ball players. John, we spoke on the phone, but you also shared your words in writing with me. And I quote you as I read in John's words. We always shared a bedroom with old wood frame beds with a single set of springs under the mattress. We sometimes treated the beds as trampolines, and sometimes put a board between them to reenact the fight between Little John and Robin Hood on the bridge. And John, I know that when you weren't busy torturing your brother with tickling, or when he wasn't busy torturing you with tickling, rather, he would show great concern about your development as a ball player. It was important to your brother that he shared his knowledge and his passion for the game of baseball with you. And John, you also recalled sweet memories of family time when you and your brother and sister and your parents might sit around and spend time playing games together, gin rummy and anagrams. You recalled that your brother's high school years were filled with varied activities. While he was at Central High School, Steve didn't play only baseball, but he was also on the track team competing in the high hurdles. John, you recalled that your brother was competitive on the tennis court, a game or an activity rather, that he shared a passion for with your dad. And he was involved with his youth group known as the Mambas. Steve was very active, and he was also the treasurer for the Mambas. This was a youth group that was not only a social group, but it was a club that practiced social action. And John, you noted that standing up for the right thing was important to your brother from a very early age throughout his life. And you said that your brother got this gift from his mom. He was also involved in activities at the Unitarian Church, where your family belonged. And John, I'm quoting you again as you wrote to me and said, as part of the high school group, he went to conferences of the Liberal Religious Youth, the National and Regional Umbrella Organization. And you wrote that he went to a Unitarian camp called Camp Row for several summers. John, you shared that books and music were a very important and vital part of your family life. Your mom had this old-fashioned FM radio, and it was always tuned to classical music. And you recall that your dad would read to you and Steve and Elizabeth every night, almost every night. You also remembered that Sunday was pancake day. Your dad would let your mom sleep in, and he would make pancakes with you and your siblings on a soapstone griddle. And then the rest of the day was spent attending services at the Unitarian Society of Germantown, where your mom and dad, and then later Steve and Elizabeth, all sang in the choir. Mom sometimes led worship services for the church's school. John, you recalled that your mom would often play the piano and sing to you at home. And the Fireside Book of Folk Songs was the primary source. And this, I know, creates beautiful memories in your mind. And I'm sure you could even hear those songs as your family sat around singing them together. Now, John, following your brother's high school graduation, we know that he matriculated to Earlham College in Indiana, and there he majored in history. While he was at Earlham College, he began to become even more involved in social issues. There's one summer he spent working for a settlement house camp in D.C., and another summer he volunteered for the American Friends Service Committee. And we also know that Steve attended the August 1963 March on Washington. After he graduated from Earlham, his next stop was law school. And for Steve, This was at Boston University. When Steve was fresh out of law school, he was first a Vista lawyer, and he was given a chance, or a choice rather, to begin his career either in Detroit or in Cleveland. Unfortunately, he chose Cleveland. While in Cleveland one night, Steve was attending a party, and it was held in Cleveland Heights on Overlook Drive. I know this information because almost exactly 4 years ago, Steve himself shared this information with me. And so I'm actually quoting Steve as I tell you this story. Steve recalled that he was at a party in Cleveland Heights, and it did not take long for him to notice a lovely lady on the other side of the room, Susan. Steve shared with me that she was stunning. He said of all the young ladies who were there, Susan was the only one who was wearing a dress, and she had this gorgeous red hair that was pulled back in a very sophisticated hairstyle. And Steve also shared that he was certain that she was not just a stunning young lady, but a stunning Irish young lady. Steve remembered that he asked her to dance, but Steve's roommate also had his eye on Susan. And the roommate was quicker than Steve, asking Susan for her phone number. But somehow, Steve managed to get the number from his roommate, and he called Susan and took her out on a date. They courted for 3.5 years, and they were married in 1973 in a Jewish ceremony at the Unitarian Church. Together, Steve and Susan enjoyed going to the movies, to plays. They loved picnics and spending time at so many of Cleveland's West Side beaches. They enjoyed music, and they enjoyed playing duets together on the recorder. They loved listening to the Cleveland Orchestra at Blossom Music Center. And the two of them together enjoyed traveling. They went to Bethesda, Maryland to visit Steve's parents, and they went camping in Vermont and to Nantucket, and they had many visits to Niagara-on-the-Lake and Chautauqua, and spent summers in Cape Cod. All these visits provided some of the best times for Steve and Susan. The two of them also sang together in the Oberlin Community Chamber Singers for over 20 years. And Steve recalled to me that his wife had a beautiful, beautiful voice. Together they attended services at Temple B'nai Abraham, and he had a nickname for her. He would call her Little Dear. Steve remembered that with her reddish hair and her big brown eyes, that was his special name for her, his Little Dear. He described Susan, his beloved, as his greatest cheerleader and the person who always had faith in his abilities and his potential. And how sweet it was for Susan and Steve when they were blessed with the greatest gift of all. And of course, Jenny, that's you. Jenny, you got to see this great love between your parents and all the beautiful things that they loved to share together, but nothing gave the two of them more joy than, of course, you. You described your dad as a person who was very attentive. You recalled that he would read you bedtime stories, and sometimes he'd make up stories, like the one about the family of the bears living on the Ohio River, hibernating and catching their food. And your father tried to encourage you to play sports. I think your words to me were, "I was terrible at that." But he didn't give up on you, and it was something that he enjoyed doing because it was with you. You said he was the one who spoiled you, especially when he took you shopping, treated you like a little princess. And perhaps in your teen years, as most teens are, a little bit rebellious, he also became your disciplinarian. And then you went off to college. And what pride and joy he had, because you went to Earlham, his alma mater. And this created yet another strong connection between you and your dad. Over the years, you'd enjoy talking with him on a number of topics, but especially you loved when you'd have meaningful conversations about history or the legal profession. And Jenny, you welcomed Alan into the family, and then you and Alan welcomed your daughters, Cordelia and Persephone. And these two little angels, when they came into the world, your dad was overjoyed. Now, Persephone, I know you are 6 years old, but in your 6 years, you have some very special memories of your granddad. You remember when he got his little kitten, who he named Sky, And you remember visiting him in Chagrin Falls, where you would get to go to the falls and the playground and enjoy some of that ice cream at the popcorn shop. And Cordelia, who is 9, you remember these beautiful walks with your granddad and how you and your sister and your mom and dad would visit him at his house in Lorraine. These were very special memories. And I think that both of you girls know how much your granddad really treasured you. He made you feel special, but you made him special too. Your granddad was sweet and thoughtful, and he gave you those special stuffed animals, Rover and Cole. And you have these beautiful memories of him that you will take forever with you through your lives. And not only do you have special memories of him, but your granddad was blessed with a lot of good friends. A lot of good friends and many clients who thought so much of him. Steve was a very well-liked man, and he was a very loved man. He was described as a man who could be very quiet and thoughtful, and he was always kind and generous, and he was humble. He was a man who was respected and loved among his friends and his clients and Lorraine's legal community. Steve was also very active, and he took leadership roles in the Kiwanis Club and the Lorraine Family County Services and Easter Seals, never forgetting to perform what we call in Hebrew tikkun olam, the act of repairing the world. While none of us are able to completely repair the world, we are not allowed to desist from trying, and he was constantly trying to make the world and his community a better place. We know that Steve was a practicing attorney, first at Vista, volunteering, and then for the Legal Aid of Cleveland. And in the late 70s, he opened his own private practice, specializing in Social Security, disability, and family law. And as we think of him today, we find the energy to thank God for the blessing of Steve as we join together with the sages of our people declaring Zichron Livrach. May the memory of Steve an angel and the good deeds that he performed here in the land of the living always be our blessing. Amen. When I come to the end of the road and the sun has set for me, I want no rights in a gloom-filled room. Why cry for a soul set free? Miss me a little, but not too long, and not with your head bowed low. Remember the love that we once shared. Miss me, but let me go. For this is a journey that we all must share, and each must go alone. It's all a part of the Master's plan, a step on the road to home. When you are lonely and sick at heart, go to the friends we knew, and bury your sorrows in doing good deeds. Miss me, but let me go. We take a moment of silent reflection as we ask God to accept Steve's soul. And as you are able, I invite you to rise for the memorial prayer, El Malei Rachamim. El Malei Rachamim, shochen במרומים, ממסי מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה, במעלות קדושים וטהורים, כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים. את נשמת יקירנו, שהלך לעולמו בגן עדן, תחי מנוחתו. אנא ברחמים אסתירהו, בסתר כנפיך לעולמים, ותצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתו. אדוני הוא נחלתו, וינוח בשלום, על משכבו, ונאמר אמן. O merciful God, who dwells on high, who is full of compassion, grant perfect rest beneath the shelter of your divine presence among the holy and pure who shine as the brightness of the firmament, to our dear departed Stephen Angel, who has gone now to his eternal home. May Steve's soul be bound up in the bonds of eternal life, and grant that his memory inspire all of us to noble and consecrated living. Amen. Friends, you can be seated. I just would like to share with you that the family will receive visitors following the interment at Mount Olive Cemetery. Visitation will be at the residence of Fran Lake, and that is at 5244 Edenhurst Road in Lyndhurst. That will be today until 9 p.m. And anyone who is wishing to make a donation in memory of Steve, the family has suggested that you might consider the American Heart Association. On behalf of Jenny and the entire family, we thank you for your love and your support on this sad and important day.